All right. Again, welcome. This is the session on the updates for D2L, fresh and refreshed. And so just want to make sure that we are recording this for future needs, that people may come back to this and use this for professional um, development options. We will send out the recording and the slides when we get done. If you have any questions along the way, please do ask. My name is Karen Hein. I'm with MTSU Online. We are all about supporting all our online faculty and students as best we can. And so we will go ahead and get started with this. And so, again, we always start off with our objectives. And the idea is that we're hopefully describing some new features or updates to features that D2L has implemented. I'll say over the past 6 to 8 months. We had some things happen in spring as well as summer that have come along that we wanted to make sure that you were aware of. And then also to hopefully help you plan out how you might use those features and functions if they're applicable to you, and thinking about what the impact is on those particular pieces. So I do have a particular another screen that I'll show you that I will share with you to go through these in the D2L course shell so that you've got an actual, this is what it's going to feel like when we get in there. But as we go through, please do ask questions. Feel free to, kind of stop me, whatever we need to do. So one of the first updates that has come along comes with groups. And I don't know whether people knew this before, but the idea was that you could only enroll up to 200 people in a specific group in your course shell before. They have now increased the number to now you can enroll 3,000 people into your course groups if you'd like. And you can also do what's called a bulk enrollment. So you can actually get a CSV file put together if you tend to create your create your groups manually. If you'd rather import them into a group area by CSV or a comma delimited file, you can now do that. Just so that you know, those are the new features that I'm going to switch over to a D2L course shell so that you can see where that's at. So hopefully people are seeing my screen that has D2L going with it. And again, our friends in groups are under their communication drop down. I go to groups.
We're not
Not
seeing that
seeing that?
screen.
Okay, thank you.
We're seeing your
It look
presenter view.
Seeing my presenter view. Well, that's exciting. I mean, I'm sure that's what everybody wanted to see. Let's go with that one. How's that? Better?
Yes,
Maybe?
we can see
There
it
we
now.
go. Thank you. Um, okay, there we go. So in the groups area, if you wanted to do that in importing via CSV, you can use the import button. So again, under communications and then groups and then import. And what I find is useful from D2L as always is that they give you a template that you can download. So you can download the CSV file, fix it for the groups that you've got going, and then you can bring that file back in and upload it, making sure that you choose the correct group that you want it to go with. People have asked, well, when would I ever want to enroll more than, a few people into a group? We've had it happen with organizations if they're using D2L to support like orientation or a professional group, and they want to put in their students as distinctive groups so that, let's say it's the class of fall 2025 or spring 2026, you could create a group and you can manually enroll them through this particular process to make that happen. So along the way, that's what we end up getting for our group area. But just so that you know, it's under the group space. You can now upload a CSV file with your group, manually enroll them, and then know that you can now increase that number to 3,000. All sorts of exciting things. All right, so the next update is about feedback. And again, I don't know that people have seen it around a little bit, because one of the updates that has come along is that you can now provide bulk feedback to your students. And while we don't encourage just a blanket set of feedback sent out to students, we like you to personalize it, to think about how you can give specific information. There may be times when you want to give bulk feedback. You want to give everybody the same information at the same time. So one of the new features that has been added is this idea of that you can add bulk feedback to a Dropbox, to an assignment discussion as well, and that you can add that feedback fairly seamlessly. So I'm going to go into a discussion area. So let's say that I'm grading a discussion. and I want to make sure that all my students get the same information. So this is again in discussions. I'm just going to go to one of my forums, and I'm going to choose the drop down, and I'm going to say assess topic. And you'll notice that, again, I have one student in this class, so it's not exactly a bulk, but there we go. Notice that you now have the button across the top that says add feedback to all. And so when I click on that, it gives me the box where I can add in any feedback. This will be blanket feedback that will be sent to all students that are enrolled in this course in this discussion board. And so I can say, great job, everyone. You've made a, good sport on this. I've seen some changes here. You might want to go look at these resources. Is it something that is going to be highly used? I'm not sure about that, but I do know that there are some faculty who were interested in sending out the same messaging to students when it comes to grading. Again, Dropbox or discussion along those ways. And so this will send that all out. If for some reason, I'm going to cancel out of that, you need to retract all of that, you can actually retract feedback using the button that's right above the listing when you're going to grade. You can say retract feedback. So you now have the ability to add feedback to all the students, but you can also retract all the feedback. I found that when the retract feedback tends to be used is that, let's say that you've gone through and you've graded an assignment and you're noticing that people are making the same error. So you can then go through and say, okay, I'm going to regrade these opportunities. We're going to redo the feedback so that it's more specific, and maybe you'll adjust the scores based upon that, what you have learned as an instructor from your student submissions. Again, not exactly always used, but I also know it's a feature that people have been asking about. And again, I think it also came about with teaching assistants. From what the D2L, our customer service manager, had mentioned, was that sometimes when student assistants post group feedback or bulk feedback, that sometimes they might need to bring that back. So I will pause here and ask if there are any questions about groups or this idea of bulk feedback.
All right, on the bulk feedback, is that different than the way you could do it before? Because what I found that I stumbled on it was like, this is amazing to do exactly what you said when people are making the same mistake over and over. I would do it this way and then still do the personalized feedback. But if you would go like to assessments and then say you went to grades, the grade book,
Right.
and let me walk myself through it. So I can
No, I was gonna say, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it with my test example, but we'll say
yeah,
that.
if you go to like introductory discussion and click on the little arrow
Mhm.
and enter grades, and there's it should give you a little box that says feedback to all. That's been there.
Yes, it has been there. What they've done is they've made the button more
Oh,
visible
okay.
so that
All right.
before you
I'm
went into
getting
the individual
it.
area, they've now just said, okay, if you know that you're going to go in and you want to give that to everybody from the get-go, go
Mm-hmm.
with the, you can do a shortcut now that
Okay.
they've done that.
So, but it's going to display the same way when they look at their grades.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the other thing I will mention is that if you were to retract all, or if you were to do another bulk update, so to speak, when you're doing the grading, let's say I come back, I've already graded, and I come back in and I'm going to do another assessment. If I already had feedback, you might want to double check that it's not going to overwrite some of that if you had already given feedback to all. Because it will replace that information in the feedback to all section. Your individual feedback should remain, but the feedback to all will change if you do this shortcut. Okay. Other questions about bulk feedback or groups? All righty. Our next is about Dropbox assignments. And again, not sure if people have noticed, but when you go to create a Dropbox assignment, you actually have now a new choice in the submission types. So again, I'm going to go to assessments and then Dropbox. And I'm just going to create a new Dropbox. And again, everything else looks the same in the main portions. So this is our sample. I have really great titles. Assignment. You would do your same grading. Your instructions stay the same. Now on the right-hand side, under the submissions and completion area, you now will see under submission type, the new type that they've added in is called file or type text submission. Excuse me, file or text submission. And so what they have determined is that people were asking about, well, I want my students to both upload a file, but also submit information in a text box that is different from the comments area. And the reason that's important is that when you go to download, if you were to download your submissions, it would actually take both the text submission and the file submission if you now choose a file or text submission as the type. If you have just a file submission, those comments come down separately. And so you want to think about how do you manage the submissions of your students. Again, is it a big change? No, not life-shattering in my opinion, but that you now have this option, it will present a text box to the student in addition to the file upload. So I'll just show that real quick. So I'm going to say, type in the box and upload your presentation file, something like that maybe. And so when I view that from the student perspective, I'm going to switch over to my student view. Hopefully everybody's seeing this all still. When I go into my student view and I go to that assessment that I just created in Dropbox, I now have my sample assignment. And like I said, one of the things that now happens is I get this box that says text submission, but I also still have the ability to add a file or recorded video. So the file or text submission as an option really is just adding this text submission box. Again, I find it helpful that if you have your students do some further explanations or reflections, that they now have this option that they can put it into a text box. Is it much different than the comments area? No, other than it will download a little bit differently if you download your submissions for all of your students. So just realize that that is one of the new features that has come along. Again, minor things come along as the system gets updated by different ideas and things like that. You can always continue to choose in your Dropbox area a file submission or the other file type submission types. Again, just edit your assignment, right-hand side under submission and completion, your submission type, you now have file or text submission, all sorts of exciting things. And then of course, make sure you save and close so that you save your work. Okay. The next two areas that updates have come along have been with rubrics. And I don't know how many people have actually gone in when you've graded an assignment. Let me see if I can make this actually work. This will be a good question. Sorry, let me go to my evaluation for that. So let's say that I'm in my student work and I've done some grading and I've made some things happen. Oh, I've used my rubric to grade. Actually, this is a one that doesn't have a grade, so let me rubric attached to it. Let me go back to my discussions area. My apologies. I'm going to go back to my discussions area, and I've attached a rubric for grading grading a discussion. And so you know how you've got your discussion rubric will be at the top here on the right-hand side when you go in to grade that. Let's say that I've made all of my choices. I can actually now clear the selections. So after I've typed things in, if I've looked at it and I just want to clear it all. So rather than one by one switching out, if I say clear selections by using the 3 dots on the right-hand side, that will clear out everything. It'll say, hey, are you sure? It will delete it will not delete any feedback that you've put in. So it will preserve the typed text. It just clears out what you've clicked on in terms of the spaces. I do that and it says, oh, hey, look, you've reset that. But you'll notice that I still have feedback here. And so I can reset my rubric basically in one step. Again, is that something, really big? No, not specifically. But if you do find yourself grading over time and you're like, oh, I just wish I didn't have to do this one by one, this is where you can go in and grade the entire or clear out the entire selection, but keep your feedback, making that happen. The other piece that I'm not sure that people have been aware of when you are going into grade with rubrics, notice that you will also get the ability to look at rubric statistics. This is one place that you can see it. You can also see it in the rubrics area, in other places. But if you want to know how your students are doing overall in comparison to what your rubric areas are, your level of criteria, know that you can get to your rubric statistics. Again, I'm in grading a discussion board topic. On the right-hand side with the rubric, there's the 3 dots. I click on that and then I see rubric statistics. And it pops open a new window. Again, I don't have a whole lot of data to show you, but realize that you can get a general idea of how students are doing with this particular rubric, how they're doing with this assignment, and you could actually provide some feedback. Oh, I noticed that because of how things are working out for this particular uh, rubric, the criteria are, have they posted? Have they spent I can see that, hey, yes, they've met that specific level that I was hoping for, or which level they've actually met to make that happen. And then if I wanted to look at individual statistics, this is where I could get a breakdown by student of, oh goodness, I don't know. Oh yes, I do know. I'm like, where did some of these people come from? That I could get an idea of how is this rubric doing across the courses in which this rubric lives. It's a big thing because then you can get an idea. And again, I'm showing you all the people that are involved, but you can see that this particular student, that would be me, is meeting level 2 and with a specific score so that you know where people are heading out with it. You can get those rubric statistics now in a little bit clearer fashion for every rubric that you've got. But what has been new with rubrics, in addition to that clear selections, is that you can now get these statistics for written response quiz questions. So if you are in a quiz and you have attached a rubric to a written response type of a question, let's say you have your students do essay questions and multiple essay questions per quiz, you can attach a rubric to each of those question answers so that you can use it to grade. And then if you wanted to, you could go in and look at, okay, so how did my students do on this one particular written response? How did they do comparison to my rubric that I had laid out? Where are their gaps? Where are the same? Where are they meeting target? Those kinds of things. So apparently before, with the written questions in quizzes, those statistics were not quite available. But I know that if you're working with accreditation, that when they say, oh, we give an assessment, it's a quiz question, it's a written response, I can attach a rubric to that. And now I can make that, give you those statistics based upon the grading that we've done. So I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to go over to the grades area to kind of show what that looks like. I'm sorry, to the quizzes area to show what that looks like. Go to my quizzes. And then I'm going to go to I have a choose your own question quiz that I have 4 written response options, and I've attached a rubric to each of those. So I put in the instructions. These are the 4 or 5 questions that I need you to answer. And then for each, I've said, okay, we need a written response. And if I click on that written response type item, it's going to think about it for a long time because that's where we are. But what I've done is I've added a rubric. And for that rubric, these are the criteria. Again, I can fill it out and grade it exactly as I do with rubrics in other areas. But what has changed or what has been updated for this particular, with this update with D2L is that I now get better statistics on how is this rubric, how is the score functioned for my students for this particular question. Again, I feel like folks who are with accreditation or trying to figure out how are my questions doing on my quiz, that this might be a session that they would be able to get the statistics for would be helpful to them. Questions about Dropbox assignments with that file or text submission option or with the rubrics?
Um, with the rubric, that's really cool doing that with the essay answers.
Yeah,
And I'm asking this on behalf of somebody in our department because we were trying to figure out how to do this.
sure.
Um, so this isn't a quiz, and the quiz can be proctored or made like Proctor U, or you could require a lockdown browser, right?
Yes, that is
Oh,
correct.
that is awesome. I will tell Suzanne. Okay.
Yes. So basically, you're going to create the quiz in D2L as you always do. So I'll just go through the process here real quick. So we go new quiz, maybe kind of, sort of, this is going to say, so this is an essay quiz, and you can put in all your descriptions and all that. So when I go to create new, again, I can create a new question. I'm going to call it, so this should work on short answer. It should work on written response. I'm going to choose written response because it's a little bit longer. When I go to create the written response question, I get my text box just as usual, so complete your essay here. And then down below, you now have the add rubric. You can say create a new one or add an existing. Again, similar feature function as where you have elsewhere. I'm going to use one that I've already got going. Yes, you can see I have 800 different ones. Let's try a discussion board. Why not? So that attaches the rubric here. You save it. You save the quiz. To get it into ProctorU, you have to go into ProctorU and then configure ProctorU to use this particular quiz in that system, and you're good to go. And then when you want the results of that rubric, you can go into your rubrics area, or again, if you go into the grades, this one's not going to work right, but if I go into my grade area, grade that, and I can get those statistics from the rubric itself. I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully, sorta, kinda.
And a follow-up. Um, in that written response box that the
Mhm.
students get, because I've never actually used a written response on a quiz, so I'm
Oh,
toying with the
okay.
idea. Can they insert like video files or audio files like they can in other boxes?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so they are able, so it's, they won't necessarily be able to insert, but they can upload.
yeah, that's what I mean.
And
Yeah, yeah.
yep, and so what you have to do, this is where things get a little fun. One of the things that you'll want to do is when you create that quiz question as a written response question, make sure that you check off the box that says enable HTML editor and allow them to insert images and add attachments. So the add attachments will allow them to attach a file. Um, the HTML will allow them to insert a link
Okay.
into their
That's
response, and it will be a hyperlink for you to be able to then um, click on. Otherwise, it will be a line of text, and you'll have to copy and paste that
okay,
to get
great.
access
Thank
to
you.
it. Yep. And just be aware that I would give them instructions for what's allowed to be inserted, um, because you want to think about, well, how much of the text do I want them to, do you want to see on the screen versus do I want to get the file and download it,
Mhm.
kind of a
Okay,
thing. So,
thank you.
but yeah, not a problem. And always save and close, that's your fun. Make that happen. So, okay, so that was rubrics. Okay, so the other pieces with quizzes that you're going to want to know about, and this is where things get a little bit even more interesting, that some of the requests that have come about is the ability to reopen attempts rather than reset or put in, if your student accidentally closes out of a quiz, you have to put them in with special access. Now you can reopen an attempt. Um, the new quiz evaluation experience, which hopefully will show you some similarities. The quiz answer feedback, where you can now do full HTML, more fancy feedback options with formatting and things like that. And then you can now print quizzes as well as answer keys to tests. So I'm going to switch back over. Hopefully that still is there. Okay. So in the quiz area, the reopen attempts. So when I go to grade a quiz, so again, I'm in my quizzes section. I'm going to go to quizzes, and then in my drop down, I'm going to choose to grade. I get my list of people. I would check and notice that you now have a button that says reopen. So again, this is if your student accidentally submitted or they timed out somehow, and you're like, okay, I'll let you back in, but I don't have to go through the special access like you would for accommodation. So if I say reopen that attempt, it will ask me, it'll say, okay, it's going to be returned to an unsubmitted state. So what that means is that it will continue to have the questions that they've answered, the way that they've answered them, and then whatever time they have left, if you've got this time test going on, it will allow them to go back and to do that. So if I say reopen attempt, it will come up and it will say, okay, well, that attempt has now been reopened, and you'll get a notification. You'll see that this is something that's been reopened, and so that the student can then go back in and finish their test or create another attempt for that. Again, depending upon how you got your original quiz configured. This
So whenever
yeah,
they
go ahead,
log
Dee.
in to start again, that's when the time restarts.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Whatever time they had left. Yep. And if you find that maybe too much time has passed and maybe you don't want to reopen the quiz this way, you still have the special access conditions that you can set. But again, this would not take away, if you've got multiple attempts, you wouldn't have to reset that number. You may be able to also, I think this was a quiz that only had one attempt that was possible. So let me go and see if I have one that's got other attempts. I don't know that I have people who've taken that. Okay. And if the student didn't actually submit it, you'll also get the message that, hey, this is, it can only be reopened if it's been submitted. So if the student's still in progress with it, you'll have to reopen a different version of it, or it will reopen the most recent. Let's see if I can reset that. So reopen, again, when you go in to grade the quiz, that's the easiest way I've found to get to this reopen button, and you can choose, who you're reopening for to make that happen. The new quiz evaluation experience, let me jump into that real quick. Again, I'm in the graded section of the quiz. You're going to see, I think hopefully over the summer, usually, you saw a note that said, hey, you could try the new quiz evaluation experience. It's no longer a try before you buy. We bought it. It's been installed. And so what is different is that you have a more alignment on the right-hand side with how the rest of D2L looks. So your feedback still is now on the right-hand side. I think there were a few other pieces about what information you could see at the top of here, but I don't know that people have noticed the big difference in that. Just know that they brought things into further alignment with how the rest of D2L functions, and that you can no longer switch back and forth between a new quiz evaluation experience and the old quiz evaluation experience. Not that big of a change, but it is an interface difference that we move that along. Like I said, it's that right-hand panel that you'll notice the difference in. One of the other pieces that came up was one of the instructors I've worked with before likes to print off how her students have answered. And so unfortunately, there's not a great way of doing this other than to highlight and then print from here. If you wanted to print off the quiz with the student answers displaying. For her, it was for accreditation purposes. The accreditors wanted to see not only what the quiz questions were, but how students actually answered a specific question. And this is one way that she would do that. What it doesn't print off is the student's name, which is actually at the top here. It only grabs what's in this frame as part of that. So just know that that's a thing that's possible. That's been changed a little bit. Okay, so that was the new quiz evaluation experiences. Okay, let's say that you want to now, instead of having, maybe you need a print copy of your quiz, or maybe you want to provide your students with an answer key after you've given a quiz that they can compare to. Maybe you're going to switch your quizzes up in the end, so that, yes, they may have had the answers, but you're not pulling on all of those. Again, if I go back to the quizzes area, in the drop-down menu now next to the quiz title, I now have a button or an entry that says print. So this will make a printer-friendly version of your quiz. You'll notice on the right-hand side, it gives you what are the options of printing with. You can include the quiz description. So for this particular quiz, this is where the questions were. You can put in a name field. So if you know that this is going to be taken on paper, and they can turn that in. A student ID field. Huge, big things. And then, so you could have this formatted, and then this opens in a new window, so you can then just click on the print button, which is not displaying on mine because I have differently sized, but know that there is a print button. You can just file print, and you can print this out as a paper copy. My favorite, of course, is the answer key. And this is not a good one, but you'll see that you can print off the answer key. It will say across the top that this is the answer key. And again, you should be able to print this out. If you wanted to, you could print to PDF so that your students would have a copy of it, and they can consult it later on for a study guide, something like that, and knowing that your final, you may have different questions that you'll ask them. So that, again, people have been asking, how do I print a quiz out of D2L? This has now been a feature that they have implemented. Again, I'm in quizzes, drop down arrow to the right, choose the print icon, entry, and then make sure you decide what you want to show. If you wanted, like I said, the professor who needed to have how the students answered, you still have to do that in the other way. But this will give you a blank quiz that you could have printed out. Big, huge thing, I'm sure. Not necessarily for our online people, but it is something. And I do like the idea of the answer key, so that it could be used as a study guide eventually, knowing full well that I would have changed up the questions on a final or on the next version of this exam. Questions about quizzes? All right, not hearing any specifically about quizzes at this point. Again, I'll give you resources that will get you into the documentation. If you run across this and you're not sure, we're always happy to help you with that. Just, head up to talk to us. Last thing is that we'll talk about is this idea of the quick eval. If you haven't seen it in your course shell, one of the new shortcuts that has been implemented, I think it was last spring, is this quick eval screen. And so again, going in there, if you do not have it in your nav bar, look for it under edit course and in the course administration. It is one of the options that's under assessment, quick eval. And again, what this is intended to do is to give you a shortcut to see all of the things that you have ready to grade. So I'm going to click on quick eval. And again, because this is a development course, it doesn't really have real people in it. I don't have a lot to show, but know that this is something that you should have access to in your course shell, and it will show all the things. I'm going to switch over. Right now it's viewing by submissions. I'm going to switch over to activities and see if I can actually get the dials to show up. It usually was taking a little bit long time last time I did it. So your mileage may vary with how long it actually takes to see what the quick eval looks like. There we go. And so this is an easy way for you to come and click on the quick eval. If you've got it in your nav bar, go to edit course under the assessment area. It's going to show all your activities that are graded. So I've got an introductory discussion. I've got a Dropbox assignment, I've got a quiz, I've got 2 quizzes. It will then show you how many have completed, how many have submitted that you may or may not have graded, and how much you've published, how many grades you've published. So let's say that I want to go in, I see that there's one new submission here. I want to go in and grade that. I click on it. It takes me to the grading for that submission. And then I can go about, do my regular grading and click on publish, make life happen. When I'm done, I can navigate to my next student as usual. When I'm done, upper left-hand corner, I can click on back to quick eval. And it will take me back to the quick eval screen so that I can continue to grade, see what else I need to get done. Again, this was a feature that was installed, I think, last spring, but most people haven't seen it or paid attention to it because it might not have been in your nav bar. We're trying to encourage everybody to go in and put it in your nav bar. The students don't see it. When you're logged in as a student, all you see is your usual nav bar without quick eval. There we go. That was just sort of one of the features that people have seemed to have missed at this point, but making sure that it's available. And like I said, it took a little bit of time, a few more seconds than I was expecting before the system displayed on the quick eval screen. But it does eventually get there. And again, realizing that you have courses with more students than mine, my single one, or more assignments than I have, it could be a little bit slower. It could be a little bit faster, depending on how you get into it. Questions about quick eval? All righty. Well, I'm going to say those are pretty much all of the updates that have come about in the past, like I said, 6 to 9 months. We tend to do these fall updates because that's when most people are paying attention. Not everybody's looking at things in the spring. They're just trying to get through spring. But these are the things that we're keeping an eye out on. We do sit in on a monthly meeting with D2L to get the updates about what's coming, what might be an impact. And so if there are things that you're seeing, and if there are updates that we've got coming along, I'll try to get those sent out to folks who are interested and try to get those advertised, because again, I think the functionality is there. People might not know it along those lines. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back to you and say, okay, what other questions do you have at this point?
All right, I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask anyway.
Sure.
Is there any way, again, this is not for me, this is for somebody in the department who has a specific problem. Is
Sure.
there any way to make discussions proctored, or at least on a lockdown browser?
Not that I know of. Our
These are the
proctoring
children.
solutions are only for quizzes
That's
and
what I thought.
exams,
Yeah.
because of the way that they connect into the system. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, what is the purpose of proctoring a discussion?
Cheating, specifically AI, cutting
Okay,
and pasting from AI. And we spent a lot of time at our faculty meeting talking about it, because
sure.
as you know, it's an ongoing problem.
Yeah,
And a lot of people are moving to Perusall, but
right.
we don't pay for Perusall. So if,
Correct.
like me, you're doing an OER class, you can't
Mhm.
ask the students to pay the $6 or whatever to
Right.
get that
Right.
plugin. So we were
What?
just brainstorming workarounds that might be able to address the issue. I hate using proctors, but I also hate people cheating.
Well, and again, when I think about the cheating option, you're really looking at an AI detection opportunity. The proctoring is going to get you somebody watching, so to speak, or a Turnitin is going to get you plagiarism, which won't catch AI generated kinds of things. And so we have not yet found the tools that will help with that in a really effective way, meaning no intervention from the instructor. I think what we have talked about in many, many different cases is how can you have your students give more information about how they came about getting their answer, or sharing their perspective, because that tends to be, walk me through your path. Try to, help you as the instructor figure out, did they make those leaps themselves, or did they have help? The other question is, if you are okay with the use of AI, having your students explain how they used AI, but then what they changed and how they inserted their own perspectives into what AI produced. Again, I don't know that there's a great way to get a determination of, you know, can I not just AI that answer as well? Have AI spit out, how can I, ensure my instructor doesn't know I used AI? They can get a response for that, but trying to figure out what is it that, um, the student could contribute to a post, to, a reflective moment with that, and that's where I start to think about the connecting points. So we always talk about how do you make your course concept relevant to your students. So is there a way that your students could connect it, make an analogy to something in their life, to something that they're seeing right now in their current environment? I'm not sure if that helps or not, but I
Yeah,
I
and
do
that's
not
pretty much
know.
what I told them was, because I teach online more than anybody else in the department.
Right,
And they were asking what I did, and I was like, I just phrase my question. I try to phrase my questions in a way to do what you said, to make them have to relate to it. And I know that there's a way to use AI to do that too.
sure,
But um, and of course we all came to the conclusion that they spend so much time finding ways not to do the work. They could have just
right,
done the work, but and
right,
a lot of times it's you can tell anyway that they didn't sincerely write it, whether they got
right,
it from AI or Course Hero or whatever.
sure,
But
sure,
we were just brainstorming, trying to figure out a way to deal with it for because it's not all the students. It's like out of a
sure,
class of 30, it's maybe three.
right.
And
Well,
those are the
so
three that were going to do it anyway before AI came along.
right.
But
One of the conversations I had, I think it was at new faculty orientation, not entirely sure, was the idea of peer review. Like if you were to hand your students each other's work, to have them critique and to make that visible, would that help at all?
it went
Trying
to
to
an
think.
extent, but when you get into a situation, it's my personal situation where I have 5 large classes.
Right, right.
It just gets,
Yeah. It's
unless it's
overwhelming.
just a perfunctory, oh, they did it, they peer review, check it off, they
Right,
an attendance grade kind of thing, but incorporating that into their assessments would be another layer of something that I'd have to oversee.
right.
And but and I know that we will find a solution, but it's at
We're
least
still working through it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it does make me feel better having talked to a lot of students about it and their opinions. They don't want to use AI. They don't they think a lot of them think it's being shoved and they
Oh,
don't want to use it. They want to read.
okay.
I had just an introductory course, and we've only been in class 2 days. I have had multiple students tell me that they are concerned about the lack of critical reasoning and they want
Oh,
to read more and they want to think.
okay. Okay.
That's why they're here. And that makes my heart lip and pat.
Yeah, so yes, we see the bright spots. So what do you offer back to them as to how they could um help with that themselves? What they're learning, they're developing their own critical reasoning.
Yeah, and I encourage reading. I'm like, if you want books to read, if you want articles, you're interested in a topic,
Hmm.
ask me and I'll help guide you through some. And I'm like, and that's one thing I like about having the discussion boards and having them read and respond to each other. They find kindred spirits. So
Right.
I'm like, ask your classmates, ask your peers. And I break my discussion groups, not in the introductory, but in the course, into smaller
Sure.
groups where they
Sure.
know each other and kind of find like. So
Right.
the students that are very serious can find each other and develop those relationships. And it's an idea. And the consistent criticism that I get, if you ever read Rachel Professor, is that I require them to read. Oh heavens, oh heavens, you're
I understand.
reading.
Yes, right. You're gathering more information, figuring that out.
Oh,
We have talked about what are the tools that can help with critical reasoning, and it all starts with just knowing that there are other sources of information.
right.
Um,
And I actually had one student last year. This was in the thematic class, the food thematic class. She was asking me where could she find, and it is just an interlevel course. So I didn't like require journal articles
sure,
or anything.
sure.
And she said, where could I find more information about this particular topic? And I was like, oh, well, if you've ever used JSTOR, you could go to JSTOR and find journal articles. And she did it for her project. And again, she's one of those exceptional students. And she
Sure.
came back, she goes, I think you should make JSTOR required for everybody. They should have to go to JSTOR and find an article that fits in with their topic. She said, I did not know it was there, and it has unlocked information for me that I am interested in, and I didn't know that I could use that. I'm trying to figure out how to work a way into my classes of having the embedded librarian have a little.
Right. I was going to say,
I need to talk
is
to
it
Janelle about that. Have a little video
right?
I can embed of walking them through how do you research online. If you're in an online class, how do you get to these resources that you need
Right.
through the library? That would be amazing. Just have a little tutorial you could drop in there to help them learn how to learn.
You might contact Sharon Parenti. She's the distance education librarian at Walker
Mhm.
Library. I can send you her information as well. She may
Oh,
already
please
have
do.
some of that
Mhm.
already crafted that you could start with. Again, maybe I know that the subject liaisons can also do more specific based upon your discipline, based upon your area of study.
Mhm.
But I have a feeling like Sharon might know where some of that has already been created,
Mhm.
that you might be able to look at least so you can get an idea of what's already offered, and then how to do that further embedded librarian to get maybe more specific. I'm fairly sure, again, Sharon's probably got the general, here's how you do research at Walker Library, but then you could get more specific with your subject liaison um, to kind of get to more of the focused resources, making that happen.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that I send that information to you when I follow up after this
Yeah.
with the
And I
slides and all
think
that.
that, and that's part of what having to search for something and we figure out the right search terms and narrow
Right,
down your
right,
topic. That's part of critical reasoning. And I think that um, giving, you try to make your class as open and accessible for everybody, but you don't want to spoon feed them to the point that they're not developing those skills. And
right.
that's the balance that you have to try to keep
Exactly,
finding and refining as technology changes. And I think
exactly.
that I think that we are behind. We're behind right now with AI. It was just dumped on us all of a sudden. So I
It's
think
great.
that
It's
we are
grown
going
quite a
to.
bit, yes. And the other piece that I've also heard, and again, not exactly sure where all the things fall, but to use AI tools like Notebook LLM to do debates
Hmm.
about course topics. Um, Again, I think Notebook is from Google. I'll try to again send you links, but its purpose has been to be more of a study aid, a
Hmm.
study partner, than it is necessarily to answer specific questions. It was designed to be more interactive in that it's going to question you and ask you to think more along those lines. While yes, it will ingest the documents, the text, the videos, those kinds of things, and come up with, you know, present back to you information. It can also be set up to do a little bit more of a debate situation where it's asking you probing questions to help you refine your thinking along that. So that is how AI has now been, I think, now moving into some of it's becoming more of a helper than it is the basic here. Let me regurgitate, put all this back together and send it back to you. It really is a little bit more interactive helper app, and I can send you more information about that.
Okay.
I just
And
have to
I will.
say, Anne, it warms my librarian heart to see you, to hear you saying all these things about, topics and narrowing down. And, these are the things librarians have been preaching for years and years. So
Oh,
they're
I
just
know.
becoming more and more important.
I'm just a repressed librarian at heart. All historians are. All we want to do is just sit in a room full of old books and papers and have everybody else leave us alone. But
I was gonna
so
say,
my
But
brother is
going
an
back,
archivist, actually. So it runs in the family.
yep.
but going back to AI, I've had that in some of my classes, especially with my undergrads. And, usually when I call them on it, I email them and I say, this paper really looks like it was written by AI. They'll say, oh, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have used it, but I was in a hurry and I won't do it anymore. Or, sometimes I have them say, well, I ran it through Grammarly and it gave me all these changes that I
Suggestions.
accepted that of course made it sound very machine written.
Right.
And so I've started talking more about the importance of writing in your own voice. And I'd rather have a paper with a few mistakes than one that sounds like it was written by a machine.
That is
Um,
exactly what I tell my students. I would rather have 300 words, warts and all, bad grammar, but it's your ideas and your thoughts, than have a piece of perfection that is empty and soulless.
mhm,
Yep. Again,
yeah,
demonstrating who you are as a human,
yeah.
making these thoughts.
And I did have one student last year that I ended up failing the course because she turned in all these papers and I kept saying, this is AI. And she kept insisting that she wrote it when it was very obviously AI. And she emailed my department chair about it. And I finally just told her, I said, if you want to do a grade appeal, here's the appeal process. And she still kept emailing me, but I didn't answer her anymore. But she never did appeal it. So
Well, so it's one of those questions that I'm not sure, again, of how much students know or don't know. One of the resources that Trey Martindale, our Associate Provost for Online Learning, he shared, apparently Wikipedia now has an entry called AI slop, to describe low quality kinds of things that are generated by AI. And so I don't know, again, so Deanne, what you remind me of is that I'm thinking about the crap test. I think we've
uh-huh.
all, how to authenticate information. And now I'm like, okay, so is there going to become a slop test of how you know something is not, uh, you know, produced of a quality that you're thinking, could be some other way, kind of a thing. So I found it interesting that suddenly now we're inventing further terms for describing what we're all experiencing. We know it when we see it, but yet we don't have specific tools that will help us address it, um, in a way. You know, how do you prove it? How do you demonstrate? How do you address it? Kind of a situation. So anyway, again, these are the things that we know are around us, and we're trying to figure out how how does what we have access to, how can we help navigate some of that, as well. So,
I just put another link in the chat
oh,
for an article I found recently. That's
excellent. Thank you for sharing resources. Much appreciated.
I won't say the title.
Oh, not a problem.
I love the
Well, the fact,
title.
very good. We appreciate. Oh, and it was even published almost a year ago. Wow, awesome.
Yeah, and it's a very academic article.
Yes. Well, again, this is again how you get past some of the AI generation is that you start to use terms that, I we ran it. We talk about AI is about word choice, and
Mm.
how it's predictive word choice. Trying to figure out, okay, you've said this word, now what's the next logical, according to it, logical word choice that comes up, and so people start to randomly insert words to throw off AI.
Mhm.
And so again, when I see titles that are creative and different, it's like, okay, well that may start to throw some things off, so that it can't just be wholesale copied and presented as the end all be all kind of a thing. So that might be another thing, to have your students see how they can trick AI.
Hmm.
Critical thinking. You never know.
You never know.
So
I think
other,
those students are capable of a lot more
yeah,
than we expect out of them, but again, it's that balance because you want to challenge them,
right,
but you don't want to create a situation where they feel like they
right,
can't succeed. And
right.
it's so hard online. That is
Yep.
so hard. I really do think it's easier face to face in the classroom because you know that you have them for 50 minutes or you have them for an hour and 25 at a certain time, and you can
Yeah.
you can just do more, I think, on that level in a classroom than you can. Because I have office hours, 5, I'm always online, you know that. And
Yep.
I have 5 dedicated student hours. I've had one student,
Mm.
average is one student of my 150 a semester that will carve the time out of their day and say, hey, I'm struggling. Can you help?
Yep. How to get people to help themselves is a hard one,
Yeah, it's the
because
age
that,
old problem.
and it always starts young, you
Yes.
know, and luckily you get the new ones, so you can help break them in and help them get
I'm
accustomed
trying.
to that you can get support. Because again, I think in the end, we're all about success. I mean, we're trying to help get the next generations through into, discovering new and bigger and better things, whatever that means. But we want their success to be something that is meaningful and
Mhm.
intentional. And how do we do that? Good questions. Good questions. All right, I'm seeing that we're close to time, so I want to just make sure that we have covered all the questions about D2L, new things, old things, other things. We will be sending out a link to the slides. Actually, get a copy of the slides. I'll get some of those resources that we talked about. There will also be a feedback survey if you wouldn't mind giving us feedback on how this presentation went. We're always trying to capture the data to demonstrate that we're, actually serving you in the way that you need to be served, that you feel is helpful. Our next session, what we're calling these Spark events, because we're talking about strategies, practices, resources, all about quality. Our next session is September 11th, I believe. It's about feedback. If you go to our website, mtsu.edu/online, we have a section about professional development, and you are welcome to sign up. Obviously, you made it here, so you found that in some way, shape, or form. But if there is anything that we can do to be of assistance, please do reach out. Happy to help, whatever we can do. This is where we are. So, any last questions, any last comments at this point?
As preview of the feedback, I know the answer, but I'm about to ask anyway. Have they done anything about feedback on discussion to see so the instructor can see if the students have read the personalized? Okay, I knew it.
I know. I know. It's in the we have a meeting with our customer service rep on Thursday, and so I will ask her again. And I'm sure she'll tell me make sure that it gets posted to the what they call the product enhancement board. And so
Mhm.
product improvement or enhancements, I think it's called PI, that we make sure that we go upvote that as a solution there, because we're not the only ones asking that question.
Yeah, because if an online class, if we're supposed to,
Right.
make the discussion a primary component,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
and being able to track that would really help me identify the students that are
Sure.
struggling.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you both for being here. Appreciate your time and energy, and I hope your semester gets off to a great start. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you again soon.